Hey, this is Sachin Chaudhari. I'm a technology entrepreneur, an investor, and a success coach. In this video, we're going to talk about the science and techniques behind how to control your ultimate destiny. So in 60s, they ran this experiment in University of Pennsylvania. They had two different sets of dogs. In one set of dogs where the cages were built in such a way that there will be a siren, and as soon as the siren ring, the dogs will be given a small shock, and there's nothing dog can do. The siren will ring randomly and it will give the shock to this set of dogs. Now there was another set of dogs with the similar cage with one small difference. There was a little panel, and once the shock is given, if the dogs touch the panel, the shock will stop. So they can control when to stop the shock. This was another set of dogs and the cages. So they ran both sets of dogs. They ran this experiment for a few weeks. Then they took a break for a month, and they ran another experiment on these same dogs. So they had these cages built in such a way that there will be a little obstacle. So the obstacle was only high enough so any normal dog can easily jump over it and go to the other side. And as soon as the siren rang, the dogs have a choice. There will be the obstacle. They can jump or they can just stay there. So the first set of dogs who had no control over their shocks in the previous experiments last month, they just stayed there. They just stayed there frozen, just sad and in pain. They did not jump over. The siren kept ringing, and after some time the siren stopped. On the other hand, the dogs which had control over the shock, they jumped immediately to the other side, try to find a solution, try to escape. So what does this experiment tell us? Well, it tells us that the first set of dogs did not learn to control their destiny. They became pessimistic. The other set of dogs who had control over their situation, they were able to touch the panel and stop the shock. They became optimistic. They became resourceful. They were able to find a solution by jumping over that little hurdle and go to the other side. So how does this apply to humans? We don't get shocks as a children or as an adult. So up to 2 years of age, we are very proactive. We fail, we rise. We fail, we rise. We fail, we rise. So whether it's uttering our first words, whether it's about walking and standing up, we fall down, we get up. We don't need external motivation for it. It's inbuilt in us. Also in all the animals, the birds, after they given a birth to the baby bird, they intuitively find a way out and start learning to fly. They try, they fail, they try again. But about 3 to 5 years of age, that's when interesting things starts to happen. As a kids, we're praised for our talents, not as much for our efforts. So in our culture, so we say to a 3-year-old, you're such a great dancer, you're so talented, you're so beautiful, you're so smart, you're so good at math. So we're sending a message that you have a talent and you're very talented. But here is the problem with that. If you're talented, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, or even an adult does not have control over our talent. The basic belief about talent is you're born with it. And you have certain talents, you don't have certain talents. Either you're a people person or you're not a people person. You are either attractive or you're not attractive. Either you are a good communicator or you're not. You're good at math, you're not. So we build these negative association and beliefs which are entirely untrue. But that's how our culture works. We praise The talent, it starts at that young age of 3. So once you tell this kid who has been pampered and admired all his life up to 3, you keep telling him you're so good in math, you're such a good dancer, you're so talented. He's now afraid to fail. There is too much pressure. You won't be able to imagine this, but look at it from a 3-year-old point of view, and you will start to understand, empathize with these little kids when you get in certain novel situation, such as try learning a new language. If you don't know Japanese, try learning the Japanese. Look at the alphabets. Your head will start to spin. That's what this 3-year-old, 4-year-old encounter in the world every day. Imagine the overwhelming feelings these little kids get. And on top of that, we're telling them, you're talented, you're born with it. If you're born with it, you can't really control it. You cannot all of a sudden become smarter or more talented. That's the underlying belief. So that's when we start to create 2 groups of kids. Just like we had those 2 groups of dogs, one who knew how to control their destiny by touching the panel, they ended up becoming optimistic. They lived longer. They were healthier than the dogs who did not have control over their situation. So some kids somehow learn that by taking control of the situation, by trying, they can excel, they can get over the obstacle, whether it's a little math problem, whether they're confused about reading rules, or whether it's to learn a new dance move. So these kids, they know when they struggle, when they have obstacle, they can get over it if they try. And the other set of kids, they start to become little by little pessimistic. They stop taking bigger risk. They will go after math problems which are small, which are easy. Sometimes they will just avoid the situations entirely, not to face that dilemma where they don't know what to do. Because they had this belief, somehow the parents, the culture, the teachers have created this belief that you're talented. And now they have to live up to that belief. So how do we start changing this situation around? Whether it's kids, your employees, your own life, your friends, or your co-workers, how do we start to become more optimistic? What do we do now? See, good news is our brains are extremely adaptable. They can change at any age. The science call it neuroplasticity. Whether you are 3-year-old or 70-year-old, you can change. It's never too late. So what do we do? So first thing we need to understand is stop praising talents. Praise the efforts. What I mean by this? So instead of saying to your kid, you're so smart, you're such a good dancer, say, hey, you tried that math problem for 10 minutes. I'm so proud of you. It's not easy to sit and work on the math problem. You did it. It's so great. When they show you an A, which is hardly looks like an A when they were starting to learn to write, instead of start correcting them, say that the efforts they put in there, the way they hold the pencil, the way they have the focus, the efforts they did, praise that. Be very good at praising the efforts, not the end result. And the second skill you need to learn is to start giving them constructive feedback. So instead of going all crazy on telling this doesn't look like an A, you should be writing this or that. Of course, you had good intention, but it's too much for little kids. They're too sensitive for any kind of negative feedback. They take it as a complete failure. They get depressed, they get unmotivated by that little thing which you're trying to help, but you ended up doing more damage than you did. So be very, very, very conservative about giving conservative feedback until they build that muscle where they can take your feedback and change their behavior. So in the beginning, as you start to give praise on the efforts, also start giving them small, very small amount of constructive feedback. So instead of telling him entirely how to fix that A, just fix one line of that capital A you're trying to teach him, or some math problem. Give small feedback, help them get over that little problem with that feedback, let them improve. Give more praise for the efforts they did and the feedback they listened to. And that's how you're going to teach kids how to take control over their situation, their life. You're too smart gives the control to the guy who is telling you you're smart. The kid has no control over his smartness. He's born with it. It's his DNA. He cannot change his DNA. But you tell him you're hardworking, you listen well, you have ability to sit for 10 minutes and work on this math problem. Now from 10 minutes, he can go to 20 minutes. He can listen to feedback. He can learn book. He can do something about it. He's not helpless. And that's where the optimism is born. So they encounter problem, they do efforts, and they realize, oh, if I try, I can learn. You know, these people you see, these amazing kids who are idol on American Idol or Indian Idol or whichever idol show you watch, we only see their finished product for 5 minutes. You know, we see that amazing dance or amazing singing performance. But I guarantee you, behind that 5 minutes, even if they are 5 years old, hundreds and hundreds of hours of training, feedback goes into it. That's never shown on TV. So your kid indirectly getting a message that this other kids you see on TV, they're talented. You just need to start the music and start dancing and you'll become like them. And guess what happens? You start the music, you dance, you try to learn here and there, you don't become like them, so you give up. Your kid give up, you give up on them. What you don't know is there is a process of success. Success is not an event, it's a process. Talent is you take skill you have, innate skill you have, you apply efforts to it, and that's how you build the talent. You build the talent. You're not born with the talent. And that's what we need to teach our kids. This is what we need to tell our employees. So if you're a boss and somebody does a really shitty job and on that project report, your instinct tells you you are so much under pressure, you have 1,000 other things to do. Now you're not going to fix this damn report which you need to submit to your higher ups tomorrow. You become critical. You look at the results and you pretend to be nice, but ultimately the message goes out. We have to continuously train ourselves is to praise the efforts. So in the case of your subordinate, you need to see what efforts they put in, praise that, and see where they went wrong in their effort. They must have put some effort. That's why you got this report. Of course, the report doesn't look like the way you wanted it, but they have put in the effort. So give the praise about the effort. That will go a long way. So at the beginning of the video, I had told you that I will tell you the secret of controlling your destiny. Well, the secret is zigzag. What do you mean? Well, if you study all the successful people, what they do is they try something, see what works, what doesn't. They take a little turn, they pivot, then they try that, then they pivot, and these pivots are sometimes somebody they meet or some new skill they acquire, some YouTube video like this they watch, or some book they read. I don't know what it is. It can be different, but I guarantee you, this zigzag is what takes them from here to here. The road is never like this. It is this zigzag. So how does this apply to what we just talked about the dogs, the sharks, the kids, the feedback, the optimism? The way it applies is you try something. First of all, you need to understand that unless you try, you put in the effort, you're not going to reach your goal. So that's the first thing we teach our kids and ourselves. And then other thing is to understand that take the feedback. You are not born with talent. You're not born with solutions. This is the problem with our culture, our education system, our TV, our American Idol shows. They are indirectly telling them a message that these people who admire your heroes on television, on Indian Idol, they're born with it. Of course, that's not the intention of the TV show, but that's the message land on people's ears and eyes, and especially the vulnerable millions and millions of kids around the world who is watching these shows. So what we need to learn from these shows is that you can get where you want to go, but that's going to take the zigzag. You try something, you adjust a little bit of your method, you go, you take another turn. So what does this mean if you want to be a dancer first enough? So you start training for dancing, but then you start to hit a plateau. Maybe you need to change your instructor. Maybe you need to learn different move. Maybe you need to let go of a limiting belief you have that you are not graceful. I don't know what that is, but I do know once you start to hit a plateau, you need to take that pivot. Then you need to start again, start making efforts, take the pivots. And the best thing we can do for our kids is to teach them how to do this when they are little. If you have older kids or your own life, you can still learn this. Our brains are extremely flexible. They are neuroplastic. That's the term, neuroplasticity. So you can change. Just understand this zigzag, and this will give you control over your destiny. So if you've seen those people who are pessimistic about life, where they blame something else. They blame that, well, my parents weren't very smart, they didn't put me in a good school, my teachers weren't good, so I never learned math, my husband is not encouraging. These are all the people who think their destiny is controlled by some other force. That's pessimism. That's like those dogs I told you who did not have that panel. All they could do is suffer and have pity over themselves, be unhappy, be unhealthy, and be unproductive. That's pessimism. So if you have that, if you are a young adult listening to this, if you're blaming something other than you, whether the money you have, whether the status you have, the connections you have, all of those things are outside of you. If you want to learn about how to make something out of nothing, you click on this link above, which will tell you how a taxi driver with nothing created a huge business in 3 years. You'll watch that. But for this video, understand that pessimism means you believe that something else outside of you is controlling you. That's not true. You got to learn to take the zigzag and be able to control your destiny. And that's when you start to see the magic. You become happier and much more successful. Thank you.